I have tried to film this video so many times, but when I do it unscripted, it turns into this rambly, nonsensical mess. And when I do script it, it comes out sounding kind of forced and a little bit fake, and that's not at all how I want this discussion to go. So today I thought I would sit down and give it yet another try. I'm using the happy medium of an outline here, and we'll just see how it goes. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about my personal experience of being biracial or multi-ethnic here in the United States, and this promises to be a rather long video, so if you want to go grab a snack or a tea or coffee or something, that's probably a good idea, and I would do that now. So what inspired me to try and film this video yet again was the Diversathon that happened last month here on BookTube. Now, the Diversathon was a readathon specifically designed to help people discover more diverse authors and perspectives and stories, and really was a super positive response to a very negative and inflammatory video, which I did not watch because I didn't think it needed any more views, about how diversity in books was basically stupid and pointless. And I just couldn't be prouder of the BookTube community for creating such a cool reading event out of such negativity. I felt like I wanted to take another stab at this video to put a mixed race, I don't know, voice out there, because I know if I had known of more mixed race people growing up myself, it would have made me feel a little bit less like the odd man out. I've spoken about this in videos before, but for those of you who don't know, my dad is Chinese, so I'm technically half third generation Chinese American, and then my mom is half Lebanese and half Irish, which is technically my white side because for whatever reason, on every form in the US and in the census, Middle Eastern counts as white. I don't understand it, but Middle Eastern is apparently white. So I grew up in a very mixed household, and it wasn't really weird for me growing up at all. They were just my family, and that's just how we were. I think it helped that in my extended family, we were also quite a diverse bunch. My dad is the oldest of 9 kids, and a lot of them didn't marry Chinese partners. Some married other partners of other Asian descent, others married Caucasian partners. Yeah, I grew up in quite an interesting melting pot of a family. So as a kid, I don't think I really thought about it all that much. I do remember being slightly confused why there weren't any Disney characters or Disney princesses specifically that looked like me. And I remember when Mulan finally came out, how that was the coolest moment. I think the only thing I ever picked up on was sometimes if I was out with my mom and her mom, who was Irish, sometimes they would ask me where my mommy was, and I would say, that's my mom and my grandma, and people would kind of be a little surprised. Sadly, this is something that still happens today, actually. I can be hanging out with my mom in public and, I don't know, a server or someone will ask, oh, who's this? And my mom will say, my daughter, and they still act surprised. Yes, I don't look exactly like her, but she's still my mom. Actually, I don't think it was until high school that I realized fully that I was a little bit different than everybody else, and that's because it was in high school that I first experienced that weird thing that happens when you happen to be mixed race, where everybody else tries to decide what race you are for you. For example, when I was in high school, I was lucky enough to get into a private college prep school that was mainly populated by white students. Apparently, to the majority of the white students, I was very Asian because they treated me with the same kind of general stereotypes that they treated the Asian students, namely commenting on the fact that I was super bad at math and science, and they didn't understand why because, aren't you Asian? Then for college, I decided to go to school in San Francisco, which is a city with a very large Asian population, and I went to a school that also had a very large Asian student population, whether those were Asian Americans or students from Asia, and it was quickly apparent that they didn't think I was Asian at all. College was also where I first encountered the question, so what exactly are you? Which, if you're mixed race or mixed ethnicity of any kind, I'm sure you've gotten that question before, and it's a very uncomfortable question. What are you? I always really wanted to just answer I'm a human, but never had the guts to. Sometimes I would just patiently explain my ethnic background. Sometimes I would just make them guess because I was tired of explaining and tried to make some sort of weird game out of it. To most accurately sum up my super weird mixed race experience in college, I thought I would just share with you quickly 2 interactions that happened during the same week. So when I was a junior in college, I was taking taking an Asian American lit course, and one of the books we were reading was The Gangster We Are All Looking For by Leti Yim Thuy, who is a Vietnamese author. And I was reading it one day on the city bus on my way to campus, and a white gentleman, an older white gentleman, tapped me on the leg, pointed to the cover of my book, and said, "Look, you're on the cover." I guess he got the vague coloring correct and the haircut, but I was just really confused, and I brought it up in class that day, and everybody else was equally confused because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I look like this chick at all. Then later that same week at work, I had a very odd interaction. I worked at the rectory on campus because I went to a Catholic university, and of course we had a rectory where all of the priests lived. This particular day, an Asian woman came in, I checked her in, and she went to sit in our waiting area across the room, let's say. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I always wear this jade ring. It was a gift from my grandmother for my high school graduation, and it's a family tradition that everybody who graduates gets one of these rings. Now, I was also very lucky that for my 21st birthday, she gave me a jade bangle. This particular day, I was wearing both the jade bangle and my ring, and I noticed this Asian woman at work was sitting there waiting for her appointment and was kind of staring at me. I asked if I could help her with anything, and she said very boldly, "I hate to ask this, but are you Asian?" I was a little thrown off, I'm not gonna lie, especially by the fact that she hadn't approached me to say this quietly, but was actually calling this across the room. So not knowing what to do, I said, "Yes, my dad is Chinese, why?" And she goes, "Oh, okay, good." Because I was just thinking, you're way too white to be wearing all that jade. Obviously, I had no idea what to say to that, so I just kind of nodded and then went back to work and was super genuinely embarrassed by the whole interaction, and still can't believe that actually happened. Because the point of this video is not to inundate you with cringeworthy stories, let's move on and touch on where I find myself personally right now in my personal identity. And I would just say that I identify as mixed. Now, I know I technically have a white half of me, but I don't ever identify as white. I definitely think of myself as a person of color. Generally speaking, I tend to identify more with my Asian side than with my Middle Eastern or Irish heritage. I know when I've talked to people about growing up mixed race in the past, one of the questions I get asked is, well, how were you raised? Were you raised white, or were you raised colored? And when I answer that, I say I was raised American. My family is definitely middle-class American. We work hard for where we are in life, and we do enjoy quite a few of the privileges that come with, I guess, white American society, but we also observe a lot of our Chinese traditions and heritage. If you want to think about my life as a Thanksgiving dinner, if I'm with my dad's family, we're eating a turkey and Chinese food, and if I'm with my mom's family, we're just eating Middle Eastern food, so take from that what you will. In terms of how I interact with the world, and especially with how I consume media of any form, I think being a mixed race has always made me really aware of diversity. So when I watch a film or read a book, I'm always looking for a mixed race character, or an Asian character, or a Middle Eastern character, or any minority character really, and what is really important to me is not only quantity of representation, but quality. So to tie this into my reading, because obviously this is primarily a booktube channel, I tend to go for Asian American literature or minority literature because I personally identify best with those liminal characters. Liminality was a theory I came across in my lit courses in undergrad and immediately latched onto because I felt like it actually encapsulated my own personal experience so well. It's basically this idea of a character or group of people that exists on a threshold between two things, whether that's two countries, two identities, two ethnicities, two ideologies. It's just an identity that is in between, and that's very much how I feel being mixed race. In a world that really likes to categorize by race. If you guys have any recommendations for books specifically featuring half Asian characters, I'm always on the lookout. I haven't actually read any, I don't think, but I would love to make more of an effort to find those mixed characters in the future so that I can share those with you guys. And because we all know I could just keep going on and on, I'm gonna try and start wrapping it up here, but if there was anything I would like you guys to take away from this video, if you've made it this far, there are two specific things I'd like you to keep in mind. Number one, diversity is more nuanced than mainstream media would have you think. think. So I know a lot of the diversity discussion in the media right now is surrounding the Oscars So White controversy of last year, but I find that when media, mainstream media at least, talks about this issue, when they say we need more diversity representation, they generally mean we need more African American diversity representation. Now, don't get me wrong, there is such a great need for own voices, African American representation. However, when it comes down to it, diversity is not about Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. There are so many people like me who exist in this weird ethnic gray area. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about specific ethnic group representation, but keep in mind that it's not so simple as we would like to make it seem. And then the last thing I would say is if you guys encounter someone who you think might be mixed race or multi-ethnic of any kind, don't ask them, what are you? If you really are so curious about their ethnic breakdown that you have to know, ask, so where are your parents from? Or what's your background? Because those questions are more sensitive and don't make us feel like weird objects that you're ogling at. I would also say before you ask that question, ask yourself, why do I want to know? Is it because I want to use their ethnic background to generalize things about their personality, their background, their family life, or stereotype these people? If so, you probably shouldn't be asking. If, however, you feel capable of using their ethnic history to start a really interesting conversation or make a deeper connection with somebody, by all means, go ahead and ask. But if you're just asking so that you know what stereotype to apply, don't even bother. So hopefully this video made sense in some shape or form, but this is just a video I've wanted to make for a very long time because I think it's an aspect of the diversity discussion that doesn't really get touched on at all. It's also really crazy for me to think that if my parents had lived 20 years earlier, their marriage would have been illegal in most of the United States. So it's just a discussion that I am very interested to have with you guys. So if you are of any ethnic background, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this whole thing. Tell me about your experience if you are mixed race and if you identify with anything that I brought up in this video. I would be very interested to hear what you guys have to say. So otherwise, I think I'm finally done. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Be kind to each other, and I will see you next time. Bye.